How can you even call yourself a
Mr.
judge?
Brooks, I need to make a record of
The courtroom
I need to
falls
make a record
silent.
too.
Darrell Brooks is
You don't-
When am I gonna
standing,
get the
shackled
chance
to
to
the
do that?
defense table, screaming at Waukesha County Circuit Judge Jennifer Dorow. You've got no integrity whatsoever. None. I'm tired of being in a courtroom that has no integrity. Judge Dorow, composed but visibly shaken, calls for a recess. Frankly, it's making me scared, she says on the record. This isn't the first outburst of the day. It won't be the last. This is the Waukesha Christmas Parade trial. And for 3 weeks in October 2022, America watched one of the most chaotic courtroom spectacles in modern legal history. November 21st, 2021. Waukesha, Wisconsin, a small city west of Milwaukee preparing for its annual Christmas parade. Families lined Main Street, children waited for Santa, marching bands warmed up. At 4:39 p.m., a red Ford Escape SUV plowed through the police barricades and entered the parade route at full speed. Prosecutor Zachary Whitshaw would later tell the jury, "I think you'll see from the videos there was a true sense of joy in the air. Darrell Brooks killed that joy." The SUV didn't slow down. It didn't swerve. Witnesses described the driver weaving deliberately through the crowd, striking dancers, band members, and families. The vehicle hit more than 60 people in the span of seconds. 6 people died. Virginia Sorenson, 79. LeAnna Owen, 71. Tamara Durand, 52. Jane Coolidge, 52. Wilhelm Hospel, 81. And 8-year-old Jackson Sparks, the youngest victim, a child who'd been marching with his baseball team. By the time the SUV exited the parade route, it had traveled 5 blocks through the heart of a community celebration, leaving a trail of devastation that would haunt Waukesha forever. Minutes after the attack, police found the red Ford Escape abandoned in a nearby driveway. The driver had fled on foot. Darrell Brooks, 40 years old, knocked on the door of a stranger's home. He asked the homeowner, Daniel Ryder, to use his phone and call for an Uber. Ryder, unaware of what had just happened blocks away, let him inside. When police arrived, they found Brooks in Ryder's home. He was arrested without incident, but the details that emerged made the tragedy even more incomprehensible. Darrell Brooks had been released from jail just 2 weeks earlier on a $1,000 bail in a domestic abuse case. Prosecutors would later admit the bail was inappropriately low. In that prior case, Brooks had allegedly run over a woman, the mother of his child, with the same red SUV he would later drive into the Christmas parade. Less than 2 weeks of freedom, and 6 people dead. October 3rd, 2022. The Darrell Brooks trial was scheduled to begin with jury selection. It should have been straightforward. Instead, within 7 minutes of court starting, Judge Jennifer Dorow called a recess and sent Brooks back to his holding cell. Days before trial, Brooks had dismissed his public defenders and elected to represent himself. He claimed to be a sovereign citizen, someone who doesn't recognize the authority of the state or federal government. From the moment Judge Dorow gavelled in Monday morning, Brooks began interrupting. He refused to recognize the state of Wisconsin. He refused to recognize Judge Dorow's authority. He repeatedly demanded she state her name. "I am still unclear on what your name is, Your Honor," Brooks said. "I believe you are biased against me." Judge Dorow called more than 10 recesses that first day alone. Jury selection, scheduled to begin at 9 a.m., was delayed by more than 6 hours. Brooks was removed from the courtroom so many times that Dorow eventually placed him in an adjacent room where he could watch via video. and where she could mute his microphone when he became disruptive. At one point, during these early proceedings, Brooks put his suit jacket over his head like a child throwing a tantrum. Another time, he put his head on the table and refused to participate. But this was only the beginning. Throughout the trial, Darrell Brooks maintained he was a sovereign citizen. He argued that the court had no jurisdiction over him, that only a living human brain could bring charges against another person, that the state of Wisconsin, as a legal entity, couldn't testify. When told the state isn't a person, Brooks demanded the case be dismissed. Judge Dorow denied the motion and told him to call his next witness. He objected to almost every question prosecutors asked, often for no legal reason. He interrupted Judge Dorow an estimated 26 times in a single 30-minute session. Mr. Brooks continues to bring this issue up, in my opinion, in front of the jury to distract, to delay, and to call into question the integrity of these proceedings. Frankly, maybe to create an issue on appeal if he is convicted, Judge Dorow said. But the most disturbing moments came when Brooks would stare down Judge Dorow in silence. During one heated exchange, after Brooks questioned her integrity and pounded his fist on the table, Dorow called a recess. This man right now is having a stare down with me. It's very disrespectful. He pounded his fist. Frankly, it's making me scared. We're taking a break. On day 4 of the trial, Brooks reached a new level of disruption. After being removed to the adjacent courtroom once again, he stripped off his shirt completely and sat with his back to the camera. At another point, he took the objection card, a piece of paper provided by the court to signal objections, and shoved it down his orange prison uniform pants. "He's made a mockery of the trial," said legal analyst Dan Abrams. "Explosive outbursts, daily sparring sessions with the judge, nonsensical questioning of witnesses." Judge Dorow later acknowledged, "To say it has been the most challenging of my career would be an understatement." But she pressed on. For nearly 3 weeks, Judge Dorow maintained extraordinary patience and composure, determined to give Brooks a fair trial despite his deliberate attempts to derail the proceedings. Prosecutors Zachary Witchow and Susan Opper presented overwhelming evidence, videos showing the red Ford Escape plowing through the parade, witnesses testifying they saw Brooks behind the wheel, police body cam footage, medical examiner reports. The evidence was irrefutable. Through it all, Brooks continued his disruptions, rolling his eyes at the judge, gesturing dismissively, interrupting testimonies, fighting over every procedural motion. "Did I raise my voice?" Judge Dorow asked him during one exchange. "I absolutely did. Was I frustrated? I absolutely was." October 26, 2022. After 3 weeks of testimony and less than 4 hours of deliberation, the jury reached their verdict. Guilty on all 76 counts. 6 counts of first-degree intentional homicide. 61 counts of reckless endangerment. 6 counts of hit and run causing death. And additional charges for bail jumping and battery. Brooks showed no visible emotion as the verdicts were read, one by one. Guilty, 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 76 times. The evidence had been overwhelming. The jury saw parade footage from multiple angles. They heard from survivors who described the horror. They saw the red SUV in person. They listened to Brooks's own bizarre defense that never once claimed he didn't do it. November 16th, 2022. Sentencing day. For 2 days, victims and their families filled the courtroom to deliver impact statements directly to Darrell Brooks. More than 70 people spoke: parents, siblings, children, survivors with permanent injuries, a community shattered by one man's violence. Jackson Sparks' mother, Sherry, described losing her 8-year-old son. "He was my baby, my little baseball player, and you took him from me." A parade dancer, permanently disabled, rolled her wheelchair to the stand. "You stole my ability to walk. You stole my future." One by one, they confronted Brooks. Some cried, some shouted. Some could barely speak through their grief. Brooks, for the first time in weeks, sat mostly silent. No objections, no interruptions. Just the weight of 70 voices telling him what he'd destroyed. Judge Jennifer Dorow then delivered the sentence. 6 consecutive life sentences without the possibility of parole, plus hundreds of additional years on the other counts. "You're an angry, selfish man," Dorow told Brooks. "You believe the world and the people in it owe you something, but you're wrong. Frankly, you deserve life in a prison cell. Darrell Brooks will die in prison." The Darrell Brooks trial exposed more than one man's guilt. It revealed systemic failures that allowed a dangerous repeat offender to be released on minimal bail just weeks before he killed 6 people. Brooks had a criminal history spanning 2 decades: domestic violence, battery, felony firearm possession, and just 15 days before the Waukesha Christmas Parade, he was released on $1,000 bail after allegedly running over his ex-girlfriend with his SUV. The bail controversy sparked national debate. Wisconsin prosecutors acknowledged the bail recommendation was inappropriately low, but the damage was done. Judge Dorow's handling of the trial has been widely praised. Despite 3 weeks of unprecedented disruptions, she preserved Brooks's right to self-representation while maintaining the dignity and fairness of the proceedings. "I cannot tolerate that, and I won't tolerate that," she told Brooks repeatedly. "I want to honor your right to self-representation, but it is not absolute." The Waukesha community continues to heal. Memorials stand where the parade once passed. Jackson Sparks' baseball field bears his name. The dancing grannies, who lost members that day, march on in their honor. But 6 families will forever have empty chairs at their tables. 61 people bear permanent scars, and a community will never forget the day their Christmas parade became a crime scene. Darrell Brooks sits in Dodge Correctional Institution in Waupun, Wisconsin. He will never walk free again. And the victims of the Waukesha Christmas Parade tragedy will finally have justice and peace.